Now on FilmFour, collaborators, stars and aficionados line up to honour a cinema legend in our specially commissioned documentary, Once Upon a Time, Sergio Leone.
In 1964, a new American hero rode onto the cinema screens in a low-budget film, A Fistful of Dollars. At first sight, the film appeared to have been directed by a new American director, Bob Robertson. In fact, Bob Robertson was a pseudonym for Italian director Sergio Leone. Although the main body of Leone's work was contained within just 2 trilogies of film, his contribution to the cinema has been lasting and profound.
For film geeks, of all the great directors that they can love and talk on and on, Leone is the one that your dad and your mom might also like too.
Leone had a fantastic eye for casting. I mean, there were people who'd been under Hollywood's nose for years and they hadn't taken advantage of them.
It was like serious play, and that's, you know, one of the things, one of his charms, you know, that he played with it, you know, he allowed things to happen.
Sergio Leone was an animal of movies. He knew his power.
Once he was rolling, he wanted to keep going. It was working like a storyteller. You can't tell a storyteller to stop in the middle.
100 years from now, Leone will be one of the great, you know, you'll be unequivocally up there with the greatest of them all.
Sergio Leone was born in 1929, the son of 2 stars of the Italian silent movies. Although initially from a reasonably affluent background, his father fell from grace with Mussolini's government, and Leone spent most of his childhood playing with other children on the steps of Viale Glorioso and amongst the narrow, densely populated streets of Trastevere in central Rome. Against the repressive backdrop of the fascists, young Leone harboured a deep longing for the American dream as epitomised by Hollywood westerns.
His provenance as a child of Mussolini's Italy is something that has been neglected. I mean, there's lots of references in the movies to Leone growing up. There's, in Fistful of Dynamite in particular, you know that scene where Rod Steiger's family is wiped out in the cave. This relates to a very famous incident in the Second World War called the Ardeatine Ditches, the Fosse Ardeatine, where a whole lot of Roman civilians were massacred by the SS in a cave, and the cave was sealed up. It's still a memorial, like a Holocaust museum in Rome. Everyone in Rome seeing that would have known what that referred to. That's a reference to the Second World War.
His cynicism, born during Mussolini's time, was further fueled when he met his first real Americans. The ordinary GIs who he encountered in the American Liberation Army were a far cry from his idealised screen heroes. This cynicism would provide an undercurrent in his later film work. Although initially studying law, he was soon drawn towards film, and between 1945 and 1959 worked as an assistant director on over 50 films with such masters of Italian cinema as De Sica and Bonnard. It was during this period that he met his future wife.
I remember before we got married, he was asking me, "Do you think I will make it as a director?" And I answered, "Go ahead, on your way. Don't get caught up in compromises. If you are determined, I am sure you will make it." And years later, he remembered that.
In the mid-50s, American movie producers arrived in Italy to produce what came to be known as the sword and sandal epics. Leone's first film as a director was Last Days of Pompeii, which he took over when its credited director, Mario Bonnard, fell ill on the first day of shooting. Soon after, he shot his first credited film, The Colossus of Rhodes.
It's almost unique. I mean, he makes his own movie. It's quite successful, a sword and sandal thing about the Colossus of Rhodes shot in Spain, and then he retreats to becoming an assistant again on Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, here's someone who's frightened of putting his head above the parapet.
When he started his career, he made those sandals movies, you know. But he was working inside, waiting for the moment.
Then, as now, the Italian film industry was based around Rome's Cinecittà studios. In the early 60s, this once thriving studio was thrown into a crisis when a number of these sword and sandal epics failed at the box office and American investment dried up. Italy's thousands of cinemas needed new films to show. American westerns had long been very popular with audiences in southern Italy, and so Italian producers looked to creating cheap homegrown products to satisfy this market. Shot in southern Spain, they were produced using American B actors as the stars, with the Italian crew appearing under pseudonyms to maintain an illusion that they were in fact American movies. By the time Leone came on the scene, 25 of these so-called spaghetti westerns had already been produced, and the genre was thought to have run its course.
When he had his script for A Fistful of Dollars, every morning he woke up and with his file under his arm he would visit all the movie producers. In the morning he was going out as a great hero, and in the evening he came home defeated. But the morning after, he left home again as a great hero. He never lost hope.
When his proposal was eventually accepted, it was only as a recoup movie. That is to say, one which would help recoup the budget which had been spent on a more important film by using the same sets and costumes. As it turned out, Fistful of Dollars completely overshadowed the main film, a more traditional ersatz western called Guns Don't Talk. The enigmatic hero of Fistful was played by Clint Eastwood, whom Leone had discovered playing the clean-cut Rowdy Yates in the TV series Rawhide.
I came here 32 or 33 years ago to meet a director who was not well known, like I was not well known as an actor, and to embark on this very small film, a remake of a Japanese samurai story on the plains of Spain for an Italian, German, Spanish co-production, and it was a very humble project to say the least. I don't think any of us anticipated that it would make a career for us, but we all thought it was going to be great fun being a pistolero on the plains of Spain. And then all of a sudden, a year or so later, things started to happen. And if I hadn't come here on that journey with Sergio Leone and Morricone and all and Massimo Dallamano and Tonino Delacoli and all of the crew, who knows where I would have ended up in the history of things.